Assalamualaikum everyone. So today we're going to look into chapter 3 for information analytics. And actually this chapter 3 is the continuation of the chapter 3 previously that we have discussed in the class, and this is the extended version of chapter 3. So we are talking about the data architecture management first, and what is the description of this data architecture management. It is actually concerned with the defining and maintaining specification that provide a standard common business vocabulary, then express strategic data requirements, outline high-level integrated design to meet these requirements, and also to align with enterprise strategy and related business architecture. And actually, data architecture management is about how do we manage the the visualization, the structure, the organization of data before we can provide the visual or the display of the data that we should provide to our client or even to our own organization. So it's actually the integrated set of specification artifacts that define what kinds of data requirement that we should have and guide the data integration, also control all of the data assets that we have and align the data investment with the business strategy. So we wanted all the data that we have in our repository to be aligned with our business goal to be achieved. So it also includes formal data names, the comprehensive data definition, effective data structure, precise data integrity rules, and also robust data documentation. So in simplest way, data architecture management, it's more about how should we structurize our data so that it can be managed. So this is actually the definition of data architecture management. It defines that the data needs of the enterprise and designing the master blueprints to meet those needs. So its goal is to plan with vision and foresight to provide high quality data, to identify and define common data requirements, and also to design conceptual structures and plans to meet the current and long-term data requirements of the enterprise. As we have discussed in the class previously, when we're looking at the data, we need to align with the goals of the data analysis purpose or data analysis objective or the goals. For example, the case on the missing or stolen vehicles, stolen cars, stolen motor cars, on the data that we analyzed during the class session. So we'll look into the goals of the data, whether we wanted to what kind of data that we wanted to visualize, what kind of data that we wanted to provide to the client or the owner of the data. So it depends on our goals on how the data should be characterized, how the data should be designed. So in the data architecture management, actually this is the overall overview of the data architecture management. So you need to understand this whole diagram in order for you to understand what is the data architecture management. We started with the inputs, whereby we need to refer to our business goals, the business strategy, what are our business architecture, the process the process architecture itself, and also our IT objectives, our IT strategies, the data strategies, data issues and needs, and also the technical architecture. These are all the inputs that provide data to our organization. They provide data to our repository. So based on these inputs, we also having those data from the suppliers, like executives, from the data stewards, data producers, and also information consumers. These are also the suppliers of our data. Just now we are talking about the inputs where the data can be included, can be inserted in our repository, and this supplier is the one who always provide us with the data. So executive who are those who execute the task, who complete the job, like our staff, our own staff, data stewards. These are the people that relates or deals with data management every day, They are the custodian of the data. The data producer, of course, those who are always generates data for the company, for the enterprise, while information consumer are those that consider as the users of the information. And doing the data architecture management, we also involve few participants like the data stewards, as just now. This person is also a supplier, and they are also the participant in the data architecture management. Why? Because they are the person who become the custodian, the guardian, the person who take care the data. So they are also participants in this process of the process of data architecture management. And subject matter expert, the SMEs, data architects also involved, the data analysts, the modelers of other enterprise architects, data management executive, the CIO, the database administrators, data model administrators, and these are only some of the participants of the data architecture management. In order for you to execute the data architecture management, you will need the tools. So some of them is also called as the data modeling tools, the model management tool, metadata repository office, and also the productivity tools. So these are only some of the tools that commonly being used during the data architecture management. So in order for you to know the end of the what we call as the result of this data architecture management, you will need to see the primary deliverables that usually expected for the by the enterprises to achieve by executing this data architecture management. It also consists of enterprise data model information value chain analysis, where you can see the what we say the analytic result based on the data architecture management, where you can use the value chain analysis for the benefits of the company. You can also achieve the data technology architecture, whether to improvise the current technology architecture or you want to adopt or to use new data technology architecture. And the data integration process, the business intelligence architecture, or you can also develop your own metadata architecture, or you improvise the current metadata architecture to improvise your enterprise taxonomies and namespaces, document management architecture, and also metadata. These are the expected and primary deliverables when you are executing the data architecture management. And who will use who will be expected by these primary deliverables? Of course, our consumers. They are the data producer, the knowledge workers, managers and executive data professional, and also our customers. So these people are not the only the external parties. They are those people who are also considered as the stakeholders of our company. And the metrics for the data architecture management, it consists of the data value, the data management cost, the achievement objective, and then the number of decisions being made, the steward representation, data professional headcount, and also data management process maturity. These are the metrics that we use to measure the effectiveness of data architecture management that we execute. We will see whether the data value is increased. What about the data management cost? Is it the cost is high but the efficiency is lessened? It should be lower data management costs and greater efficiency of management, and so on. So in the enterprise data architecture, when we say enterprise, it's about a business organization, okay, and they have their own data architecture. It's actually integrated set of specification on documents. It consists of the enterprise data model, information value chain analysis, and also related data delivery architecture. So the enterprise data model is actually the core of enterprise data architecture. Every data that being operated during the enterprise activities, for example, like the data from the financial department, the data from the operation department, the administration department, and all the data that possessed by the company. while the information value chain analysis is aligns data with business processes and other enterprise architecture components so that they can see which data is refers to the benefits of the company and which data can be leveraged for the benefits of the company, and especially how does it relates to other business processes. For example, how does operation data relates to the financial data and also relates to the staffing data. So the value chain analysis. And related data delivery architecture is about database architecture, include database architecture, data integration architecture, data warehousing. This is actually about how do you communicate your data, how do you deliver your data to your, for example, your own staff, how do you deliver your data to your customer. So this is what we call as the data delivery architecture, how you design the processes to deliver the information, to deliver the data to your recipient. So the data architecture management activities consist of this, but it is I would say it is broader than the listed activities. You can see that you need to understand the enterprise information needs, and then afterwards, when you know what the enterprise need, you need to develop and maintain the enterprise data model. And we call enterprise data model. It will consist not only from the part of the data creation part, it also includes all the data lifecycle model from its creation to its usage to its organization to its uh, maintained, whether to be stored or to be disposed, and even to be used again, to be reused for another data creation. And then after that, we need to analyze and align with other business models, define and maintain the database architecture, how the database of data should be designed, should be characterized, define and maintain the data integration architecture, which data should be integrated with another data, how and what kind of policy should be included during this data integration architecture so that only necessary data will be integrated. Define and maintain the data warehouse or business intelligence architecture. This we will discuss afterwards. Define and maintain enterprise taxonomies and namespaces. Usually this is related to our naming convention. For example, how should we name a folder according to category that we wanted? For example, in our personal computer, of course, we will rename our folder by our own preferences. But according to enterprise taxonomies and namespaces in organization, they will need to be renamed according to the rules and procedure of the enterprise. It's not simply said by renaming by your own preferences. No, you have to maintain the taxonomies and then define and maintain the metadata architecture. So how should you organize your metadata so that your data can be searchable and retrievable. So as I mentioned just now about understanding the enterprise information needs, you need to create an enterprise data architecture so that the organization can define its information needs, whereby it will allows you to have a master blueprint for enterprise-wide data integration. So by doing this, you need to evaluate the current inputs and outputs required by the organization, both from and to internal and external targets. So the next one is to define and maintain the data technology architecture. So you need to identify the technology categories like the following. For example, like the database management system. How should you manage your data using this system? Database management utilities, the tools that are required for you to execute this DBMS, the data modeling and model management tools, how should your data be managed according to certain flow or certain diagrams, certain models that you have adopted in your enterprise. Business intelligence software for reporting and analysis. In order for you to do the data analytics, you will need this BI software. As in our subject, we are using the Power BI. Extract, transform, load. This is the process that I have mentioned previously, the ETL. Change data capture, the CDC, and other data integration tools. Data quality analysis and data cleansing tools. metadata management software, and also including metadata repository. So these are the technology categories that can be considered before you embark or engage with the activity of define and maintain the data technology architecture. So other than that, you also need to classify technology architecture component as this one. What is the current technology that we have? What kind of technology deployment that we need to execute, especially use in the next 1 to 2 years. The strategic expected to be available for use in the next 2+ years, your strategic planning. And then retirement, the organization has retired or intends to retire this year. Retirement of the technology, sometimes certain technologies have become obsolete, need to be upgraded or changed to a new one. And preferred for use by most applications. For example, we always use the Microsoft Office software, especially the Excel software to maintain our data, to manage our data. And then the containment, the limited to use by certain application, and then the emerging being researched and piloted for possible future deployment. And these are the activities that defines how data flows through all systems from beginning to end, which is commonly known as the data integration architecture. So when we say integration, means how we combine data together. Okay, and then the data architecture and application architecture, of course, both are include databases, and they control the data flow in the system. So the integration of them is very, very crucial. So it has to be done properly and carefully so that no data is missing or being altered. In the activities of define and maintain the data warehouse or the data repository, or also known as the business intelligence architecture, it's focused on how data changes and snapshots are stored in data warehouse system for maximum usefulness and performance. And these are the activities of any enterprise that they will do, whereby they will always keep again and again the data that they generated day to day. So the data integration architecture would show them how data moves from source system through staging databases into data warehouses and data marts, and then reuse again for their operation. While the business intelligence architecture defines how decision support makes data available, including the selection and use of business intelligence tools. Even though we, in a theory perspective, we would say that every data that we have will be used again in the future for our own benefits. But it depends on the decision supports that makes the data available for future usage. Sometimes the decision that we create now, especially the policy, does not support future data references. So we need to use, or we need to strategize the business intelligence architecture so that we can reuse our existing data for future usage. The next activity is about define and maintain enterprise taxonomies and namespaces. As I mentioned just now, how do you rename your files? That is the most simplest thing to be described to describe what is taxonomies and namespaces. And commonly, the organization will develop their own taxonomies to organize collective thinking about topics. So these topics will commonly known as the categories that used to rename any data mart, any data collection in our data warehouse. So the definition of terms used in such taxonomies should be consistent with the enterprise data model so that it cannot be confused by the staff later on. And the next activity is also define and maintain the metadata architecture. This is about providing the retrieval and access as what we did in our information management field. So metadata architecture defines the managed flow of the metadata. Okay, and then it also defines how metadata is created, integrated, controlled, and accessed. And you need to place this in mind, whereby the use of metadata is for access and retrieval. So in any metadata architecture, of course, they are looking towards the design for the search and retrieval of the data. And these are the guiding principle of how you should do the data architecture management. So I mentioned just now, the data architecture is integrated set of specification of master blueprint used to define data requirements, what data should be included, what data should be discarded, guide data integration, which data should be merged together, to control data assets, whether it can be searched, it should be hidden, it should be encrypted, and align data investment with business strategy. So data architecture guiding principle is needed to ensure that all the data are benefiting the company, not just for the sake of keeping the data. So the next one is enterprise data architecture is part of the overall enterprise architecture along with process architecture, business architecture, system architecture, and technology architecture. It means that the enterprise data architecture must cover all of the enterprise activities. That's why it's said about process architecture, business architecture, system architecture, and technology architecture. So the overall activities of the enterprise must be aligned with the data architecture model. And the three major categories of specification that includes in enterprise data architecture is the enterprise data model, information value chain analysis, and also data delivery architecture, as I mentioned just now about these three major categories. The next topic is about the data warehousing and business intelligence management. And as its name, the data warehouse is a combination of two primary components: integrated decision support database, and also related software program to collect, cleanse, transform, and store data from a variety of operational and external sources. And the both components combine to support historical, analytical, and business intelligence requirement. I would say this is can be said as simply as the log, the log of the data activities, so that we can see our history, we can analyze our data, and also use them for our business intelligence. Okay, and when it comes to business intelligence, it's a set of business capability, including the query, analysis, and also reporting activities by knowledge workers to monitor and understand the financial operation health and make business decisions about the enterprise. And I would say, by using this business intelligence, you can see how should you improvise your enterprise, how can you see the performance of the enterprise, and how to make a decision to enforce and to upgrade your business activities, your business profits, or even your business performance. And these are the purpose of business intelligence. And together, data warehousing and business intelligence, of course, when they are together, it is actually the collection, integration, and presentation of data to knowledge workers for the purpose of business analysis and decision making. And when we do the data visualization that we did in the discussion during the class using Power BI, so we can do visualization. This visualization is actually an analysis. So when it comes to business, we already did a business analysis, and at that moment when we look into the data visualization, it really helps us in doing the decision making for the company. And composed of activities supporting all phases of the decision support lifecycle that provide context. And commonly, the integration of data warehousing and business intelligence management moves and transforms data from sources to a common target data store. It also provides knowledge workers various means of access and manipulation, and also reporting of the integrated target data. So data at itself does not mean anything, but once you analyze and once you process the data and create information to become knowledge and help the decision making process or activities, it can help and to increase your business intelligence. So the data warehousing and business intelligence management definition and goals are like this. Definition is most likely covered on the planning, implementation, and also control processes to provide decision support data. So we are talking about the decision making and also support knowledge workers in engaging to do any reporting, query, and analysis regarding the enterprise data. And as it is, the goals is to support and enable effective business analysis and decision making, also to build and maintain the environment or infrastructure to support business intelligence activities. Of course, for the sake of business survival, data analytics, information analytics, or the integration of data warehousing and business intelligence management is required so that we can sustain the performance of the business by doing good and perfect decision making and leveraging our business intelligence. So in data warehousing and business intelligence management, it can be simply said to be described using this model. You can see what are the inputs of data warehousing here. This is our business drivers, business intelligence data, and access requirement, data quality requirements. These are the sources of data for this data warehousing and business intelligence management. And the suppliers is consists of these executive and managers, subject matter expert, the data governance council, data producers, data architects, and analysts. And the participant would be more than this in the data warehousing, whereby it almost include every person in the company. As you can see here, it consists of business executive and managers, uh, data management execs and other IT management, the business intelligence program managers, and even the data quality analyst. So there are so many people that will involved in the data warehousing and business intelligence management. And the tools, these are only some of them. These are the tools that commonly being used during the process of this data warehousing and business intelligence management. And the major deliverables or the primary deliverables that they expected to achieve is like this: the data warehousing and BI architecture, the guideline, the procedure, the flow, the diagram, the model that guides the whole data warehousing and business intelligence management. Of course, data warehouses, data marts and all cubes, the dashboard and scorecards, analytic application, and so on. While the consumer, you can see here, it is also the enterprise's stakeholders like the knowledge workers, managers, and executive, external customer, internal customer, and even data professional or other IT professional. So the metrics of the process of data warehousing and business intelligence management will be looked into the usage metrics to evaluate the use of this, the operation of the data warehousing and business intelligence, the customer use satisfaction, subject area coverage, and also response and performance metrics. So these are how the effectiveness of this management of data warehousing and business intelligence being measured. These are the metrics. Right, and you can see here the objective of this process is to provide integrated storage of required current history and current and historical data organized by subject area. I would say data warehouse will warehouse all the data that we created, generated, or even captured during their business activities. And business intelligence is there for you to leverage the data that you already captured and collected together for the sake of benefits of the company. Okay, and you can see here it said that leveraging rather than duplicating relevant data management component functions such as reference and master data management, data governance, data quality, and metadata. So other than the metadata for access and retrieval, the data also needed to be governed and its quality should be ensured so that it can be findable, can be accessible, can be used interoperable with the other with various platforms, and also can be reused again in the future. And here you can see the data warehousing and business intelligence management function, activities and sub-activities. Starting from the data warehousing and business intelligence management, it also can be driven by the understanding business intelligence information needs, define and maintain the data warehousing and business intelligence architecture, implement data warehouse and data marts, implement business intelligence tools and user interface, process data for business intelligence, monitor tune data warehousing process, and also monitor and tune the BI activities and performance. And you can see here, these are the activities and sub-activities of the data warehousing and business intelligence management. I would say this is the sum up of the whole things about data warehousing and business intelligence management. So in the principal part, I would say this is the fixed principle that must be executed by all the enterprises that doing the data warehousing and business intelligence. But this is most likely the guidance or the recommendation principle, whereby you need to obtain executive commitment and support, as these projects are labor intensive. People need to be committed with the project of data warehousing and business intelligence management, because it secure businesses SMEs as their support and high availability are necessary for getting the correct data and useful BI solution, so that the enterprises can be beneficial for their performance later on, whether to increase the performance or to increase the productivity. And the business focus and driven, so that every decision making is not something that being done without without data, something that being done impromptu, something that being done out of instinct. So the let the business drive the prioritization, and demonstrable data quality is of course very essential, so that the data visualization would really have the demonstrable data quality, whereby it can show us the actual position of what the data is telling us all about. So these are some of the other guidance that can be very helping in the data warehousing and business intelligence management. And then the next one is to understand the business intelligence information needs, so that it can be aware by all the participants of the process of the business intelligence information needs. And typically, the ETL portion, the extract, transform, and load portion, can consume 60% to 70% of the data warehouse and business intelligence management project budget and time. So it's a very budget consuming and also time consuming project. That's why the awareness need to be nurtured, and then the staff or the participant who involved need to be very committed. And the data warehouse and business intelligence architecture can be said as successful by these requirements, whereby it really needed technical architect, like the hardware operating system, people who are really good at hardware operating system, databases, and also the architecture of DWDIF, data warehouse and business intelligence management. The data architect, of course, people who really expert in data analysis, system of record, data modeling, and data mapping. The ETL architect, extract, transform, and load architect, and also design lead, and also metadata specialist. And the other one is the business intelligence application architect. So these technical requirements will also include performance, availability, and timing needs, which are the key drivers in developing the data warehouse and business intelligence management architecture. And of course, without business acceptance of the data, it cannot be a successful project. And Meeting this requirement is paramount for every data warehouse and business intelligence management architecture. And when you want to implement the data warehouse and data marts, the first is to see the purpose of data warehouse, which is to integrate all data from multiple sources and then serve up the integrated data for business intelligence purposes. You have collect all the data and don't let them be as quiet and silent as it is. It must be used and analyzed for the business intelligence purposes. That's the main thing about data warehousing and also business intelligence. While the purpose of data mart is to provide data for analysis to knowledge workers, because data mart is much simpler than the data warehouse. It's staggered and categorized by each by the topics, so it is easier for them to be analyzed. And of course, it needed tools and user interface for you to implement the business intelligence. You must have the BI tool, as in our case, we use Power BI, and it is using graphical user interface so that when you do the visualization, as you already did this, the dashboard, it really helps you with the user interface to provide visualization of data about our our data analytics results. About the query and reporting, and this is the common process of the data sources. When we wanted to create any report, the dashboard that you created is actually involve these two process, query and reporting. And these are the tools that enable users who want the author to own their reports and also create outputs for the use of artists. And these are the landscape of the query and reporting tools. You can see here, commonly used tool and also the specialist tool. Okay, the IT developer, the IT developers usually involved in statistic and also production reporting tools. The analysts and information workers will involve in the OLAP and also business query. Executive and managers will involve in dashboard, scorecards, and also interactive fixed reports. The frontline workers will involve in embedded BI and published reports, while the customers are the external parties. So this is the OLAP, means the online analytical processing tools. It provide interactive and multi-dimensional analysis with different dimensions and different levels of details. So what does OLAP do? It slice, dice, drill, roll up, and pivot. Okay, so all the data not simply put there and then analyze. No, it must be slice, dice, drill, and do these such of things so that we can be a very good data analytics. As in slice, we will slice the data into subsets of multi-dimensional array. For example, big data, we can slice up them into a small chunk so that we can be able to analyze them properly. Dice, the operation is sliced on more than 2 dimensions of the data. Drill down to specific analytical technique whereby the user navigates among levels of data, meaning from most summarized and most detailed. Roll up about the data relationship, and then the pivot, which is dimensional orientation of the report or page display. And other than that, we also require the analytic application, include the logic and processor to extract data from well-known source systems such as vendor ERP system, data model for data mart, and the pre-built reports and dashboard. So in our case, we are using Power BI as our analytic application. And in implementing management dashboards and scorecard, both are the efficient way of presenting the performance information. As previously in our Power BI session, you already created the visualization of the retail minimart on how the sales that they have, on how many sales per year, uh, how many sales per month, and then what are their performance, and so on. And dashboard are oriented more towards dynamic presentation, while the scorecard are divided into 4 columns of view, such as finance, customer, environment, and employees. And other than that, we also have performance management tools, which is actually the applications that include budgeting, planning, and financial consolidation to see whether your enterprise are located in the profitable condition or loss condition. And the next one is the predictive analytics and data mining tools. Data mining, of course, is the one that helps you to dig up data that you have in your repository, which reveals pattern in data and able you kept and let you to be able to use the data for the benefits of the company. And also advanced visualization in discovery tool, which allows you to interact with the data in a highly visual and interactive way. And the one that we are using is the Power BI dashboard. Process data for business intelligence, and most of the work in any data warehouse and business intelligence management effort involves in the preparation and processing of the data. Of course, before we do the ETL process, we need to prepare the data and then execute the ETL process with to help us in analyzing the data. The staging area, of course, the staging area is the intermediate data store between an original data source and the centralized data repository. It's like a waiting room before the data being processed. And mapping sources and target. Sources to target mapping is the implementation activity that defines data type details and transformation rules for all required entities. So the data elements and from each individual sources to each individual target, it's a mapping of how the data comes and where should it goes. Uh, so this is what we call as mapping sources and targets. And of course, the help of taxonomy, a solid taxonomy is necessary to match the data elements in the ecosystem into a consistent structure in the EW, enterprise data warehousing. So if you have multiple database, the naming convention of each data categories must be consistent. If not, when you are having so many databases and the naming is not consistent, so you can mistakenly recognize similar files or similar data. Data cleansing and transformation usually should be able to be done during the data acquisition. We have did this during our Power BI and Google Refine session. Focus on activities that correct and enhance the domain values of the individual data elements, including enforcement of standards. But you need to understand that in the data cleansing and the data transformation, we are not required or unable to change the data. We shouldn't change the data. We only go for cleansing, which is the corrective activities, and also we transform them so that the data elements, entities, and subject areas can be processed. So cannot change the data. Okay. Monitor and tune data warehousing process. So it should be monitored, of course, and then each relationship and dependencies among process is required. For example, data for processing and data for generating the results, they are actually complementing each other and require each other, so that without one, the another process cannot be done. Archiving also is a difficult subject in data warehousing, whereby mostly the data owners feels that every data is important and every data is an active data, yet there are so many data that is old enough to be archived and rarely being used. Yet, similar actions needed to be done with the BI activities, the business intelligence activities and performance, because the BI monitoring and tuning is essential to define and display a set of customer-facing satisfaction metrics. You need to measure your business intelligence activity, whether it is performing or it is underperforming. And then the regular view of usage statistic and pattern can show you how your enterprises is doing, whether they are in a great position or in the broken position. And that will be all for our chapter 3 extended version. Thank you.